to hear me saying this rather than me having to write it up. So backing up a little bit, Pastor Kim, can you hear us now? Okay, good. Um, so what I'm going to back up and talk a little bit about the attachments for the group ethical decision making assignment. So the teamwork letter document is basically for you guys to kind of hold each other accountable with the teamwork, and I would expect that each person submits their own assessment of the team separately. So you can share it with your team if you want, or you don't have to, but just upload that on your own when you upload the final document. And each person does, even though it's a group project, each person in the group does need to upload their copy of the group project. What I was saying about the rubrics, you've got two rubrics, both the problem solving and the ethical reasoning. I would recommend using the problem solving rubric to kind of help frame your group decision making document, and where I think the ethical reasoning kind of helps you to think more deeply about the ethics of the individual situation. So the way I will use these rubrics is like the problem solving is kind of the decision making piece, right? That's the piece to the project that this is really about. It's about solving a problem, making a decision or looking at decisions multiple ways. But to think more deeply about it from the ethical point of view, I think that's what the ethical reasoning rubric helps you to do. So you want to build into your thinking, what are the core beliefs? Where do those beliefs come from? Do they come from the group? Do they come from the community? Do they come from the organization? Right? Understanding that there will be different perspectives, right? And talking about those different perspectives, recognizing that the ethical issues are multi-layered, right? And kind of really digging into some of that. So I think the ethical reasoning rubric gives you kind of like the depth to your assignment, whereas the the problem solving rubric gives you kind of like the frame.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay. And when you were saying submitting those separately, Dr. Jackson, are you referring to not just the teamwork evaluation, but as an example, Sonia's doing the case study for the Oakland, I'm doing the Gorge. Are you saying you also want us to submit those separately, or do you want us to put them in one because we were working on it as one document?
Right. I would like that as one document. So yeah,
Okay.
the group decision making needs to be one document with everybody's name on the title page. Yeah.
Got it.
Pastor Kim, you said you guys had some questions.
Good evening. I'm in the library, so I was trying to be
be librarian, quiet.
I'm looking for a social life, but the social life seems to be in the library. So.
All right now.
Yeah. Good evening. Brianna and I met Sunday, I believe. Yes, Sunday, because I've had like 4 deaths in a row, and even one today when people are going to wake people up and they're dead. And it's
my goodness.
Yeah, it's a real thing. It's a real thing. And so she had some questions about, I think what you've already addressed is how we frame the work that we're doing, and we're doing the work as a group under the framework of what we've studied in class.
Correct. And
so
yeah, that's a good way to
I suggest it's funny how we work together, yet we have different views.
Absolutely.
And so I'm taking advantage of technology at its core. And so I told Brianna, I said, well, I suggest that we record, because we were on a Zoom, and we record our questions and then upload them and send them to you. And so she had some apprehension. And the group decision making started off right there. So
yeah,
it's a very interesting dynamic when we as leaders are not easily persuaded to let go of our biases
Our own ways of being,
and our
right?
own ways
Our own
of being,
bias.
our
Yeah,
own ways of doing. And
yeah.
so um I'm just, it's just exciting to see it come alive even in this assignment,
Now,
because
I'm
we
glad you're pointing that out because that is a part of the intent of the assignment, and that's why it's done as a group. Is so to position you guys to have to make decisions together. Yeah,
exactly, and
yeah.
I knew it. I mean, I felt it from the beginning, and which is it forces us to come together and to make decisions and in a group and to bring our real authentic selves as leaders.
And that's why I feel like that teamwork document is also important because it gives you an opportunity to kind of sit back and reflect and share that like with me without, like I said, you can share your teamwork assessment reflection with the full group, but you don't have to. I just want you to submit it to me because I think that that's an important part of this exercise is that reflection on how your team worked together, and what were some of the challenges and what were some of the points of that went more smoothly, and kind of thinking about why and how that might impact your thinking and your practice moving forward. So while it's it is kind of like an instrument that's multiple use for you to think about, to position you to hold each other accountable for your meetings, right? But also for you to spend some time reflecting on how did it go, once you're done.
And it's interesting because the background of where we come from, our own experiences, lend itself to the decisions that we make every day. And so I told her, I said, the natural order of things would be for me, because we're taking the case of Eric Gardner and the scorecard. And I told her, I said, well, the natural thing would be for me to take Eric Gardner and you take the scorecard. And I said, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do it. I want the scorecard and you do Eric Gardner. And there was some pushback, but I told her, I said, because we have to be comfortable in talking about that which is not comfortable. And I said, in
that's a part of
higher education is a systemic problem, and it's layered in oppression. So we're going to deal with it, which all systems of America. That's all
and it gives y'all an opportunity to come back to the drawing board after she has spent time with it and talk about it. Both of you, should come back. I know it's just the two of you. So I like for teams to be 3 at least, because it makes it like it's not like, doesn't create a sense of conflict with each other. But I think you guys are mature enough. Hopefully, there's a level of maturity that doesn't, deter from the project. But there should be some dialogue, right, about when she comes back and says, well, here's what I think, how we should do this. And you might not agree, or there might be some nuances to it, right? That she hadn't thought about. But I think that, the right approach is to wonder, right? That's one of my favorite things is I wonder, what if, also, I think that the decision-making strategies that are in the Johnson text give you another way of thinking about things in a way that's kind of constructive, even though here's the other thing, and I think this came out of our last conversation that I didn't get to record, but we had such a deep discussion about. Sometimes things just happen, and you don't have time to go pull out Kidder or anybody else, right? But I think too, a part of practicing decision making and understanding your own decision making processes and where your go-tos are, right?
And that's what happened. That's what happened with my executive leadership interview. I mean, it was a community situation where they asked me to conduct a conversation with 2 elders in the community. And, I know Dr. Bethune, I know Dr. Rashid. And so then when Dr. Bethune was getting ready to leave, it hit me like, you need to do the executive interview with her. Now, the vulnerability of that is that she served prison time. And I was like, well, do I really want to know that? And then, yeah, I need to know that, because that's one of the ethical leadership situations, right? what happened, because that is not your character. So what happened? And I'm thankful that she was able to be transparent and honest about the one thing, rest as a leader, the importance of rest as a leader. And when we make the decisions, are we rested?
Wow. I mean, the value, I think so much value in the fact that she had been incarcerated, was willing to be vulnerable, and got real about, you know, what it takes. I think that there's this surface level conversation we have about what leadership means and what it looks like and what we're supposed to be doing. But the real part of leadership, in my experience, you know, I don't have I don't have 50 years under my belt as a leader, but I've got over a decade, and it's our humanness. You know, it's one of my fears with all of this artificial intelligence things are, you know, a big part of being in a leadership role has to do with understanding humanity, and that we are all coming at our work with what we have in that moment. And we don't all have everything everybody else has, but we have what we have. And so walking into spaces knowing that people are bringing what they have in that moment and working from there, meeting people where they are, is a big part of being able to navigate the roles where we serve as leaders. And also understanding that we aren't the only leader in the room in most cases. In many cases in the work that we do, we're not the only leader in the room. There doesn't only have to be one. I feel like the world has evolved and shifted to where, yeah, a lot of times we do need somebody that's like rallying the group and, you know, motivating people to be together. But then you're gonna have people also in the room who bring different perspectives to leading a group. So being the kind of leader that can recognize that, I think, is can be more helpful to those of us that have the opportunity to be in those roles, and positioning those people to shine, right? I mean, like, not letting our egos get so much in the way that we feel like, you know, we should be the only people bringing something to the table.
That's tough because of the intergenerational construct that we see now. And even with Doc and myself, in getting this next delegation together to go to South Africa in June, she has positioned me to be able to lead the delegation. However, I've got a 25-year-old from the church that this has been her dream. So it's like this thing has skipped me and gone to Jordan. And Jordan is she's in reserve. She's a graduate of FAMU. She's a leader in her own right at 25. And so I'm having this conversation with Doc, and I'm saying, I don't have to do it. Jordan can do it, because that's what church missions looks like. And now I get to go on my vacation or whenever I want to go.
Right. And you can provide guidance and insight, but you don't have to be the one to do it all.
And right. And that's that intergenerational collide that we're having even with AI. And I tell people, you got cats that have gone to the edge of space and come right back. So your mind has to flip a little bit to see
where we are, right? To really realize and embrace where we are. I know we've jumped a little bit past the project, but I always love talking to Pastor Kim. We can go out there. We can go out there. But I just want to make sure that what we get on the recording is, you know, what people might need for the project. So did y'all have any other questions that were directly related to the project?
I think I'm good on my side.
Well, I was hoping Brianna would get in. I texted her to see if she was going to come on, because
I can wait a little while. I can you know, we can keep chatting.
Because I know she talked about us where we're having class, and I said, well, you know, it's like Dr. Jackson comes on before for the
No,
question.
I had no intention of having class. I could have to be, just real clear, honest, like this semester has been probably the most difficult in my career, and I am just ready for it to be over with.
Mm.
Just being transparent with y'all.
And
Y'all
that's real. That's real as
Y'all
far
have
as
been very gracious and very understanding and patient, and I appreciate that. I know that there are multiple times that I failed you all, but my baby brother is gone, so that's the only thing I can say is that I did the best I could in the midst of my own personal situation, and hopefully, I do believe that you guys were able to get what you needed. Everything that I've seen that you guys have produced has been amazing. And the places where I needed to give guidance on how to do things better, hopefully that guidance was understood, and I think that in most cases that it was. So I don't feel like there was any like complete falling apart failures when it comes to the class itself. When I disappointed, I was not present, or maybe my communication was slow in some cases. But I do think that you guys got what you need to move forward, and I think that's what's important.
the models and the tools. Those are those the ones that are in the text that we're supposed to use or look at?
Yes. Did I tell you? Do you know what pages they're on?
I have no idea.
I think they're different. Y'all have a different edition. I have the 6th edition. Do you have the 6th or the 7th?
I've got the 7th edition.
Yeah, I want to say it's in a different chapter in your edition, but if you have an index, you should be able to find it.
Are you talking about the decision-making model?
Those are the ones you want us to focus on, right?
Yeah, the decision-making models, like the Kidder.
They start on, I think it's page 190. 188 is where you have 4-way, but 4-way was not one of the ones that you had highlighted for us to utilize.
Right.
That's where the decision-making formats start on 188, and I think on 190 you see the 5 timeless questions starts on 190 in terms of decision-making.
I think some of what we have. Thank you for that, Arande, because like I said, I have the 6th edition, and I think it starts on page 182 in the 6th edition. A lot of what we're talking about when it comes to decision making, these models are kind of like in an ideal situation. This is what the way you should think about it, right? Mm-hmm. Part of this project, what I'm not expecting you to use all of the models. I'm expecting you to review these models and say, I think this is the best approach because, right? So providing the justification. Mm-hmm. And these aren't the only decision-making models. Like if you went to Google or Google Scholar, you can put in decision-making models and you're going to come up with many others. So if there's another model that you'd like to use that's not in this book, I'm definitely not opposed to that. But again, telling us why you chose this approach is what I'm really looking for, is the critical thinking behind it.
Got it.
And I was just able to get my Fluker text because Amazon kept messing up. But I was looking at the Fluker text, and I identify with the spirit, the social decision making, and it's almost like it's a setup. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, you did get it. So you're saying you did?
I did. Yeah, I have the text.
Okay, fine. Yeah, so that text, I think, especially for those of us that grew up in communities, Black communities, brown communities, the way that we, our cultures, think about morality and how it's connected to our belief systems. I think Fluker gets at that, which is why I added that text to this work. Oh, there's Brianna. Because Johnson, as well as the Price book, are more from a white racial frame and the traditional way of thinking about ethics and moral. And I think Fluker definitely adds a layer that comes from a marginalized community perspective. Hello, Brianna.
Hey, thanks. Sorry, it's on a work call. You know how that goes.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. We talked a little bit about the rubrics, I did record this, so I'll be able to send the recording. If you guys don't see it sometime tomorrow, remind me. But it'll pop up on my screen too. So, but
Dr. Jackson, I think I'm good in terms of the questions. That the main thing the group wanted me to ask was around the presentation. So I'm gonna drop off and get back to
no
writing.
worries. Thank you, Aronde. No
Thank you.
presentation. No
All right.
presentation.
Have
All
a great
right.
rest of the week.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
So I think Brianna, is there anything other than the rubrics and how to use them and that you had questions about?
I'm sure Kim already went through, we were just really like we talked about that decision-making piece of like, they've made a decision, us making a decision, and like the models and tools. So as long as that's been covered, I don't want to make you like repeat yourself, Ben. I wasn't
No,
here.
I'm good with that because like I said, I'm recording this and it'll go out to everybody too. But so, and I don't think we talked about in depth about what you just mentioned, which is like you're reading something where decisions already been made, right?
Yeah.
And so you're assessing that decision. One way to think about this is, using either any of the models in the Johnson text or using some decision-making model that you chose from outside of that. Do you come up with the same decision? If so, why do you think that is? And if you don't come up with the same decision, what decision do you come up with and why? And why might it be different? We were just kind of talking about cultural context of decision making. And I was explaining to Aronde and Pastor Kim about how the reason I added the Fluker text so Dr. Ford used to teach this class, and then I became the kind of whole keeper of the keys for this class. And I like both the Johnson and the Price text because I think the Price brings like this kind of here's the ways of thinking that are kind of steeped in ethics. So we need to know where we came from. So that's kind of like the historical. And I know a lot of people actually gotten comments on evaluations about that Price text being antiquated and blah blah blah. Well, you're right, but I think that there's also the value of knowing where morals and ethics, especially in our country, where people might be coming from. That's where that comes from. And then the Johnson text, I think, gives us those case studies and gives us kind of a more practical way of thinking about decision making. And then what Fluker adds to this that neither of those texts have is this kind of cultural piece that comes from communities that have belief systems that factor into their moral and ethics that you don't find that in either Price or Johnson. Absolutely. And because we are in a social justice oriented leadership program, I felt like that was a missing piece, and I added that text.
Good, yeah. Johnson does feel very like straight white man. Okay. That helps us because I think that's what we were trying to frame, and I think that's where we got. But it's good to hear you like say the words of I think it's obvious now that it's building on that ethical leadership interview assignment of like assessing a decision through that model and then seeing like where do you agree, where do you disagree, changes that you have made. So I think that makes sense to me.
And that's why I also say in the kind of directions that this isn't about the right answer, it's about the answer that makes sense, right? Based on, I think we should think about it from our point of view, because that's just natural. But also when you're on teams or working for an organization, you got to think about, or a community, right?
Yeah.
Well, how do those layers, so the multi-layered cultural context that goes into thinking about things and decision making, so spending some time in that. And I think your ethical reasoning rubric kind of gives you some ways to deepen that discussion. Yeah. And so the reason I gave you guys multiple rubrics is because I feel like the problem solving rubric kind of gives you a frame. Like if you wanted a heading, those if you wanted section headings for your project, defining the problem would be a heading. Identifying strategies would be a heading, right? So each of those, and then building on those capstone descriptions of each of those. But the ethical reasoning, I think, adds depth to your discussion. And so that's why I also included that rubric. For
That's
your,
really helpful.
yeah.
Yeah, that helps me. I think I was just struggling to conceptualize this assignment. Like, you've got these pieces, and then I look at the work that we've done, and so I think it was just wrapping my mind around like exactly what you're looking for, and like how do we, bite the elephant.
And each group is going to look different, and I expect that. I mean, because a part of this, and I think that it is uncomfortable when you come into like a research space, is because we're used to being given, this is the way you do it. This is the way you do it. And one of the things that as you become a scholar, researcher, is that you're the creator, right? So I'm positioning you to, use your creative mind. I'm not going to tell you this is the way.
Yes.
I need you to start to build your own thinking in such a way that you're able to explain the why and provide the evidence and justifications for that, because that's a part of getting to the defense, right?
Sure.
I get a lot of pushback because I used to teach I used to teach only classes that were like classes that students got their second year, third year. And so now that I'm teaching first year classes, I get a lot of pushback because I've already, I know where you're going. Not only have I done it as a student, but I've already walked most of the students through this. So I'm coming in with all guns blazing, trying to get you guys into this way of thinking now. Because if you wait to get to this way of thinking at comps, it's kind of late, right? And some people don't even get to it by comps because you're not already starting to think about yourself as a scholar, first of all, as a researcher, and that you're the one who's answering the questions. You're the one who's creating the approaches, the ways of thinking, and taking other people's thoughts and pulling them together in such a way that you're creating something. And so that's what a big part of what I'm trying to position you guys to do, both in this class and in 815, is to be creative.
I appreciate that. I mean, I do understand it. It has been I think getting the brain back in that gear has been the step, at least for me. I don't know if that's the case for other people, but
No, it's a lot. It's a lot, but I think you guys are great. I think y'all have, I have loved, one of the highlights, even though grading papers is not my favorite thing to do, but I'm really glad that we used the video component, because that's been really I guess a highlight in me, kind of like listening to y'all talk about, your responses to the questions. It's been really awesome. I was listening to some of them again today and writing some comments in there. So I think you guys have done a great job this semester, and you put a lot of thought into your work. So thanks for saying it.
I appreciate that tidbit you just mentioned about getting us to think a certain way. I'm a GRA, and I have this project that I've been working on, and I struggled in the beginning because I'm like, nobody told me the instructions. I don't know if I'm doing it right or wrong or whatever. And I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing? And then the Spirit hit me and says, you bring what you bring and just let it go. And I had to just like, okay, I'm going to be the professional here. I'm going to be the expert. I'm going to do it my way. And it's amazing how that's where we are. That's instead of being student, being the creator, being the expert. So I appreciate you reinforcing that, because that's the way we've been programmed to think in the educational world, is that there's a right or wrong answer. No, there's your answer. And let's talk about it, expand on it. So
yeah, and you're not just your answer, but here's why.
Yeah,
right?
defense.
So being able to say that this is it and here's why this is it is important. And it's also important to look at all the opposition, right? Here's other ways of thinking about it, but that for this particular situation, even though we could do that, this is the way we need to go. Because yeah. So anything else?
I think we're clear.
Okay.
Yeah, just thinking about
it. Oh, thank you. I'm here. If you guys need to jump on, a call anytime between now and the end of the semester. Even though we don't have any more scheduled meetings, just let me know. I'm happy to do it. Of course, I do still have office hours. I only have 2 weeks left. So of course those apply, but if we need to schedule a different time, we can do that too.
Okay.
All righty.
We're good. Thank you.
All
Thank you,
right.
Dr. Jackson.
Y'all have a good evening. I'll see you
You too.
later.
See ya.
Bye.